Well, a good morning to you. Saturday's here again, and Philip Newbury here with you. And another Ask the Expert. And joining me in the studio, we have Elaine VonCannon, Associate Broker, ABR, SRES Notary, Residential and Commercial Property Manager with Coldwell Banker Traditions. And with her, we have Kevin Onizuk, Branch Manager with JG Wentworth Home Lending right here in Williamsburg. And we have a special guest that is with us today, and that is Kevin Solver. A little bit confusing, we have two Kevins. And Kevin is with US Inspect. He is Area Manager with Richmond and Hampton Roads. Now, I'll give you some contact numbers in a little later in the show, but first of all, good morning. So, Elaine, good morning. How are you? And good morning, Kevin and Kevin Salvo. Good morning. Great to talk to you this morning.
Just to interject, Philip.
Yes.
It's not confusing with two Kevins. Everything's better with two Kevins.
What I'm going to do, I'm going to call you Kevin, and I'm going to call the other Kevin, Kevin S.
Perfect.
So that'll be less confusing to everybody. Probably confusing to me, but there it is. Good morning, all. So,
okay.
Elaine.
Well, today we have an all-important subject, and that is home inspections. And any part of my residential real estate transactions, in my humble opinion, is you need a home inspector. You need a home inspection. So today I've asked Kevin Salva of US Inspects to join us, and I've been working with Kevin for about 18 years. So he was very young when he started. He wasn't even out of school, probably. But he's very good. But anybody that's going to buy a home, even if you're doing it on your own, you really need a home inspection.
Okay. Well, we're going to start with Kevin S. So not to get us confused without anything. We don't want to get it confused with Kevin Onizuk. So, Kevin S., could you tell our listening audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I've been working with U.S. Inspect since I've moved here. We do home inspections for mostly for people that are buying houses. We do occasionally perform pre-listing inspections, and there's a variety of different inspections that go along with the home inspections. I manage the Richmond team and the Hampton Roads team in Southern Virginia, so we have about 12 guys that work for us throughout the area. We've been very busy this year, which is nice. It's been a very, I'm not sure about the other fields, but as far as inspections go, this has been a very busy year, which is great for us and for the economy.
Cool. Well, thank you for that. And Kevin and Elaine, how important is a home inspection for each of you in terms of the transactions? And we'll start with you, Elaine.
If a buyer buys a house without a home inspection, you don't have the 3-day rule like you do for a car. Well, I don't like it, I'm going to turn it back in. It don't work like that. You know, it's buyer beware. It's the caveats in Virginia. So I always tell my buyers, you really need a home inspection. And you're free to choose who you want to. But with that being said, not all home inspectors are alike. Not all home inspectors will do the quality. Some of them will nitpick cosmetics, which you don't need.
Right.
Some of them will get the buyers in such a tailspin and get their drawers in a knot, as my mama would say. She's passed. But they get them so upset that, they'll walk away from a transaction. Because part of the contract is that with the home inspection, you have a time period, and then they have to agree if there's repairs to be done. The seller will have to agree what they're going to do, or they can go back and forth. Or the buyer can just say, I don't want this house.
Yeah.
And that has happened. An example is one that Kevin and I did years and years ago in Guinea. We still talk about it to this day. Kevin went under it, and he came back out, and he was shaking his head. There was 18 scissor jacks under that house, holding the house up for piers. Now,
wow.
Peter, you can understand this because you used to build. 18 scissor jacks and Guinea, and that's the lower part of Gloucester. That's what they call it, the locals. And it's very marshy and very wet, and you have scissor jacks holding your house up. That would make me a little leery.
It would make
That was not even disclosed. So, of course, I went back and told the listing agent, you got to disclose this. Once you know it, you got to disclose it. So that's a main reason right there. If they had bought that house without an inspection, they would not have seen it. And the inspector that you choose is so important because Kevin, bless his heart, he's got the patience of Job. He'll hold their little hands. I'm holding Kevin Onizuk's hand now. They're holding their little hands, and they can go with him around the house, and he'll answer all their questions. He only shows them, he doesn't nitpick cosmetics, mechanicals like you're supposed to, or, the minutia of the build. Not that the rug is discolored in the corner. You can see that, but if, like, you step in the corner and the floor goes down, we might have a problem underneath the house.
Yes, quite likely you would do.
Yes.
Yes.
Is that, I guess,
Kevin.
my turn to chime in, Phil?
Yes, please.
Jump in, Kevin.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm not going to have a whole lot to say about home inspections today because the home inspection really isn't part of the home mortgage process. We typically don't ask for it, nor do we even want to see it. We look at something a little bit different. That's called the appraisal. So Kevin, as a home inspector, he's going to go through incredible detail about the condition of the house. And he can tell you more about what he looks at, but he's going to be climbing under crawl spaces, going in attics. He's going to be checking every outlet. That is not part of what we look at in the mortgage process. What we do is we send out an appraiser. So when someone purchases a home and gets financing, we do a real estate appraisal. It's assigned to a neutral third party who's chosen at random. They go out to the home. And from our perspective, they're looking at two things. Number one is, does the market value as determined by the appraisal support the purchase price? So if you're paying $200,000 for a home, we want the appraiser to say, sure, it's worth $200,000. So that's the first thing. The second thing is condition related, much like what Kevin, the home inspector, does. But they're just going through and making sure the home meets the minimum qualifications for that particular mortgage program. So they're not going through anywhere near as much detail. It's more, they're going through the house. If they notice something, they comment on it. If they're in the kitchen and they see sunlight, but there's not a skylight there, so you're not supposed to see sunlight, they're going to mention that. Yes. If the carpets are wet, they're going to mention that, holes in walls, that type of thing, but they're not going to dig like Kevin would. So your home inspection really protects you, the buyer, to make sure that you're getting a good quality house, or you at least know what you're getting. From a lender's perspective, the appraisal protects me, the lender, knowing that it meets the minimum standards for that mortgage and the value is worth at least what they're paying for it.
Well, thank you.
Philip, can I interject something?
Yes, please.
All right. Kevin does do conventional. He does FHA and VA. Now, recently on a VA that I had, the sellers, they had a window, okay? Even though they replaced the window, that because it came through the home inspection that there was a cracked window and need to be replaced.
Right.
Well, when the appraiser went out there, it hadn't been done yet. Well, we had to wait until the appraiser could go back out again to recheck because having a broken window with the VA loan was a red flag. So if you don't get a home inspection and you're a buyer and you go out there, the VAs are a little bit stricter than the FHAs and a whole lot more stricter than a conventional. They may find something such as a window or a stair railing going down steps or to a basement or something like that that they will gig you on and hold up your loan until it's fixed.
I suppose, sure they would, yeah.
Yeah, in fact, Elaine, quite often we wait to order the appraisal until the home inspection is done.
That's right.
Because they're both generally out-of-pocket costs for a buyer. They pay for the home inspection and we usually wait to make sure there's no significant issues or problems, because once that appraisal is ordered, that appraiser expects to get paid whether or not the loan closes. So someone's paying that appraiser. So usually we wait. If there's a significant home inspection problem, then we let them deal with that. The buyer and the seller come to an agreement before the appraiser goes out. And if some of those repairs are done before the appraiser goes out, then as Elaine mentioned, it can save some time and re-inspections from an appraiser.
Right.
Which they charge you for.
Yeah, I guess so. Kevin S.
Yes.
What do you find is the biggest item that a buyer will have concerns over?
They all boil down to one thing, and that's water. It's water penetration, roof issues, mold issues, fungus issues. Whenever you talk about any of the big things with a home, it mostly has it will likely involve water. So that's one of the things that I do as soon as I pull up in an inspection. I look at the house and I figure out, okay, what happens when it rains here? Where does the water go? Does the roof keep the water out? Does the siding keep the water out? So a big part of inspections and buyers' questions are around water and water-related issues.
Okay. Kevin S. again, can you tell us the difference in mildew and mold?
Sure.
Since you mentioned it.
Sure. Yeah, I'll bring all. We can discuss mildew and mold. We could probably discuss mildew and mold for about the next hour and a half, 2 hours. There's mildew is a mold. It's all of those mildew, mold, fungus can all be clumped up into the same category because they all do pretty much the same thing. Their purpose is to break down dead materials. The difference between mildew and mold is kind of the severity of the mold. So mildew is going to be something that you typically see on something like the dew on shrubs, or the green on the side of the house, or maybe even some of the mildew, like allergenic mold you might see in a shower. When you think of mildew, that's what I think of. When I think of mold, I think of more of a severe situation where you've got mold growth or mold that's attached itself to a cellulose product and is starting to grow, and that is a lot more severe or important than some of the little allergenic mold. Not to say that large concentrations of mildew isn't an issue, but you typically see more of an issue with mold than you do with mildew. Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks. I tell you what, talk us through the steps that you do when you perform a home inspection.
Sure. Yeah. So it's another topic that could probably take about an hour and a half, but it's a long process. So typically I show up at the inspection at least 15, 20 minutes early. Take a look at the house, the land, the property. See if it's on a sloped lot. Does the slope go towards the house, away from the house? So it's all about getting there early, seeing what's there, taking a walk around outside and looking at the siding, getting up on the roof, look at the roof, the shingles and the flashings. Flashings on a roof are probably the most important part of a roof. 70% of roof leaks come from flashing. So that's the first place I look for on a roof to see if there's any issues.
And around chimneys and
chimney caps. Chimney caps are always a problem. The concrete crowns at the top tend to crack or deteriorate, and then you find water in your chimney or even in your fireplace. So it's a good point, Elaine. Typically, once I'm done with the outside, I'll start in the kitchen and get all the appliances going, start running water through the fixtures. I like to run as much water through the fixtures as possible to make sure that they don't leak and they don't back up at all. After going through the house, a lot of the inside of the house is very simple and takes less time. It's the outside, crawl space, attic, and roof that take the longest time. And the last thing I would do is go under the house and take a look at the foundation, floor framing, look for any signs of termites or moisture problems. But it's pretty much looking at every component within the home. So we're looking at electrical, plumbing, HVAC, making sure that people are going to be comfortable. So it's everything within, around, above, and below the house.
And also, Kevin, because I have very unique clients and buyers, sellers a lot of times, because I like to do rural areas too. You'll have boat ramps, boat lifts that Kevin has to look at, wells. Then they'll ask them about the septic. Yeah. Because not everything around here is on city sewer, city water.
No, that's true.
And they will also ask him about the sheds and the detached garages. And that's a point too for Kevin Onizuk, because some VA loans, and I think FHA loans, if there's a shed on there, they want a clean termite and moisture letter. I've had that happen several times where I had to send Tidewater back out to do that, even though it was mentioned in the home inspection, and the seller says, we're not going to do it. Well, in the end, they had to do it, or the buyers couldn't get the loan. So you have to pick what point you want to fight your battles there.
That's true. That's true. If it is a shed, freestanding garage, accessory dwelling unit, another
Pole barn.
unit on the property that has value, we need to know that it's not eaten up by termites. So depending upon the mortgage program, a termite report to include those outbuildings is often required. Nowadays, it's really only on a VA. The VA does still require a termite report to be submitted. Your FHA and conventional do not, but some local lenders still will require it. So VA is absolutely required in Virginia. The others depend upon your lender. You're right. We want to make sure that if a structure is given value, it is structurally sound. And while I'm sure Kevin can do an examination for termites and damage as well as anybody else, we actually do need that official termite report on that format, and that's typically done by a pest control company.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Now, okay, well, back to you, Kevin S. When the buyer gets their report that you send them, do they call you if they have any questions, or how about their agent or the listing agent?
Sure. Yeah. Well, typically I show up and I'm doing my inspection for the buyer. So I work with the buyer and the buyer's agent. Whenever I get phone calls, it's which isn't often. It's usually for something that they're not sure about, or something that they don't understand. Most buyer's agents that I work with understand most of what's in my report. So it's usually a buyer who gets the report and wants to understand how severe or how important one of the items in the report was.
I see. Kevin, does the home inspector impact a buyer's mortgage?
It can impact it slightly, but as I mentioned before, we typically do not ask for it, don't want to see a copy of it, because we're doing our own inspection called the appraisal. So if you send us the home inspection, it can kind of open up a can of worms of us seeing stuff that we really did not ask to see. Where it can impact the mortgage is if there's specific verbiage in the contract referencing the home inspection or home inspection repairs. We may need to see that those have been completed to confirm that all the terms of the contract have been met. So in general, it doesn't impact the mortgage, but it can if there's some specifics in the purchase contract, or something unique comes up.
And now that you mention that, in the purchase contract that most people use, whether it's RAIN, VAR, or the Richmond contract, the verbiage is in there for mechanicals, the electric, the plumbing. The verbiage is in there for clear title, to make sure it's clear. The verbiage is in there for termite and moisture. It's in there. So, and the title company will be requesting all of this, as well as they do a title search. But they'll be requesting all this because the verbiage is in there. I mean, they really do try to protect the consumer.
Good. Well, look, Kevin S., back to you again. What are the worst things you found on an inspection? I mean, this must be an easy one for you.
Yeah.
And was there anything really gross?
Yes. Well, the first thought that comes to mind is gross. Yeah. I mean, sometimes I'll go into a house and like people would have had maybe a lot of pets and fleas, and it's, you get in there for a few minutes and your ankles are just getting eaten up by fleas.
And it stinks.
Yeah. And sometimes it stinks. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to gross anybody out that's maybe having their breakfast. But there are some times where when I walk into a house and I want to put on gloves. Spacesuit. But some of the worst things I've seen, I had an inspection where a tenant was, her heat had gone out and she was using her gas range to heat her house. And for me, that was one of the worst things to see because of the risk of carbon monoxide.
Yeah.
So it's stuff like that you see occasionally, don't come up often. Probably the biggest thing on a regular basis is the amount of termite damage or moisture and fungus damage in crawl spaces.
Thought that, yes.
Yeah, especially when you're looking in a crawl space in this area, anytime between June, July, August, most of them have excessive moisture and sweating, and that's what leads to a lot of the problems that that can scare people.
Kevin and I did an inspection one time in Norfolk, and it was one of those beautiful older homes down there. And there was, and he mentions in the report there was evidence of old termite tubes, because when they never knocked them down, duh. And or he'll usually say if it's active, he can usually tell if they're active or if they're old. But anyway, because he said there was evidence of old termites, the buyers freaked out, and I had to get Kevin to call them. They were from Louisiana, wasn't it, Kevin? And evidently down there the termites must be the size of a chihuahua or something, because they were saying, well, we can't have no $5,000 bond on the. And I said, what are you talking about? Well, you have to have a bond with termites. No, you're in Virginia. You're not in Oz anymore, Dorothy. You're in Virginia. We don't do that. Our termites are not that big. I had to get Kevin because they didn't believe me. They thought I didn't know what I was talking about, yet I was their buyer's agent. So they called Kevin, and he had to talk them off the ledge about we don't have termites as big as chihuahuas in Virginia. So things like that is different in areas when people are moving in as to what will freak them out.
Kevin S., what other types of inspections does your company perform for customers?
We perform a lot of different inspections. One of the inspections that we perform is an infrared inspection, and we perform that with every home inspection. So it's not an additional fee. It just goes with the inspection, and we use the infrared camera to look for any signs of leaks or moisture problems, and sometimes little electrical issues during the course of the inspection. So we do that for every inspection. We also we offer radon inspections. We do offer mold inspection now. So we have inspectors that are certified to do mold. So we offer those. We can do termite letters. We don't like to because in our area, typically the sellers are required to take care of that. But we can offer the letter. So we do mold, radon, and infrared, which we do along with the inspection.
That's the moisture meter?
The moisture meter I would use with the infrared camera. Yep. If I were to see something that was suspect, I would use the moisture meter to follow up and determine if there's any moisture there or not.
Well, thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking with Elaine VonCannon she's associate broker with Coldwell Banker, and here is a number to contact her. I know you got a pen ready by now. 757-288-4685. That's the cell number, and that's probably the best one to get you on, isn't it?
Yes, sir. I answer it all the time.
Good. And also in the studio, we have Kevin Onizuk, branch manager with J.G. Wentworth Home Lending here in Williamsburg. And again, cell number 757-645-8996. And our special guest today is Kevin Solver. He's with US Inspect. And again, mobile number 757-254-2960. All right, back to the questions and back to the show.
Well, the hot button right now is radon.
Yes.
Radon is a big hot button around here. And we are in one of the low radon zones. We don't have the granite. Now, Kevin's from Boston, if you couldn't tell by his accent. I know he sounds Southern like I do. But we have the hot button that a lot of people have been pushing and some inspection companies been pushing is radon. And so it's not that prevalent around here. Now, Kevin, where do you find radon around here?
There's I've had several radon inspections, several radon tests that have come up above the action level in mostly in houses in areas that have basements in our area. So you're seeing higher levels in houses with basements or on a slab. So there are several neighborhoods in Williamsburg that have had levels that are above the action level. That action level is 4.0. We would typically put in a radon monitor for a residential sale and leave it in for at least 48 hours and get the results that afternoon. But we're starting to see a lot more people asking for radon, which of course is what's showing us a lot more houses that are testing above the action level.
Okay. Yeah, Kevin, I would chime in there too that I had a neighbor who was selling their house it was, I would say it's been typically unusual for people to do a lot of radon testing in the area, but the folks were coming down from the Northeast where radon testing is common, so they wanted it as part of their home inspection package. They got the radon testing, and it was a house with the basement, and they did have a radon problem, unbeknownst to the family that lived there. So it can creep up, and they did have to do some remediation. I believe the install fans and some other things like that.
Yeah, they have mitigation systems that are used to lower the levels of radon in the house, and they typically bring levels down from, and if they're up at 7 or 8, they can bring them down to 0.3 or 0.4. So it's a significant difference between before and after, and they're not that expensive. The average cost is anywhere between $800 and $1,500.
Oh, very good. That's awesome.
Yep.
So I guess we typically wrap up with what's going on in the market.
Yeah.
So
That's what we'd like. Yep.
yeah,
We've got
so-
about a minute to talk about the market.
the market is great. It's springtime. Spring has sprung. So we always look towards the middle of the March in our business as the time where things start to go crazy. So buyers start buying, sellers start selling. So we are ready and available to help you out. I can certainly help get you pre-approved for financing. Elaine can find you the perfect house, and Kevin can inspect it. So we're expecting
Total
a great
package.
spring season.
So everything's
Total
good.
package. Kevin, what loans are you seeing the most of right now?
It's really all across the board on the basics. I mean, there's not a ton left. Most everything is good, safe, government-backed programs, FHA, VA, and conventional. It just depends on what's best for that individual, what they want to do for down payment. The super exciting thing is there's programs, especially for first-time home buyers, with no down payments. There's grant funds here in Virginia to help cover most of your down payment. If you're a veteran, there's grant funds towards your closing costs. There's a lot of really great incentives right now, and we are super excited about 2019 because people can buy. It's really affordable. Interest rates are still low, which makes payments still low, and you don't need a lot of cash.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Well, a very informative show as always, but we're just about out of time. I want to thank our guests today, and Elaine, of course, Elaine VonCannon, Kevin Onizuk, and Kevin Solver. And thank you, listeners, for joining us. This has been Philip Newberry for Ask the Expert. And now stay tuned for more great music on FM 93.5 The Berg and WMBG AM 740. Have a great weekend. Cheers.